Welcome back to Les Schwab Tire Center's Outdoor GPS, presented by Fisherman's Marine and Outdoor.
Welcome back, everyone. Thank you very much for joining us this morning, and thanks to Andy for a great report from the saltwater. But we have Mr. Terry Mulkey here in the studio. Y'all recognize him. If you spend any time on the Columbia or the Willamette any year, you've only been guiding for what, 5, 6 years?
A little over 5 years.
Yeah. A little over 5 years. He's usually the one that's got a net swinging around somewhere with his clients having some fun. But first things first, and it's really good to see you. Thanks for coming in my studio. It's a little bit different than the last studio we were in.
I like it a lot.
It's a little bit closer to your house too, isn't it?
It is a lot closer.
Okay, that's always good. That means we might be able to twist his arm and get him in here. First thing I got to do though, and you may not be aware of this, but some of our Facebook fans and other sources wanted to say congratulations and happy retirement to you. It looks like you might be retiring sometime soon.
I got 1 more year.
1 more year.
1 more year, yeah,
so,
next year. I'll still have my river license. I'm going to still guide out my drip boat and stuff.
Okay.
But I won't do my power boat.
I got you. Now, how many years have you been guiding here in the Northwest?
Since 1979.
Good night. So a bit of time. You've had a chance to see it go from not so great to really great to not so great to really great, and now things are really kind of wonky. How would you call it now in 2024? How are we doing?
We're lacking in spring Chinook, obviously, this year.
Yeah.
I think the genetic part of our fishery is on the tail end now, where we used to have a lot of April fish, and now all that's seems like it's been shoved back into June,
right.
Even to the first 2 weeks of July.
Yeah, yeah.
And then the other part of that fishery down in the lower river of the Willamette is you get fish making the wrong turn.
Oh, right, okay.
Coming up the slough, Columbia River fish. So, and I think I've been seeing quite a bit of that in the last week and a half, 2 weeks. 20-pound fish, you know. You found one.
I did. I got luckier than I can believe. I finally got one. Yeah.
Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday of this week, I had a 20-pounder each day.
Wow.
Which, the biggest fish of the season for me.
Okay.
They've been 7 to 12-pounders.
And that's the way they've all been.
They have been cookie cutters. So.
It's just been lift them up. Hey, yeah. Do you need a net?
Everybody says, well, how big's your fish been? Anyway.
But they're delicious. I mean,
hey.
They've been cutting great.
You know, it doesn't matter if they're 4 pounds. A spring Chinook's good eating.
Yeah, no doubt about it. All right, so let's talk a little bit about that Willamette fishery. It's the end of June now. You're still chasing them. Yesterday you had a tough day. You had a couple of options or a couple of opportunities, didn't convert on those. And that's really the way it's been for most boats. So he is human, by the way. Did you see quite a few fish get caught yesterday, or overall was it slow?
You know, it would start out slow in the morning, but a lot of that fishery down there is tide.
Okay.
And once that tide started rolling a little bit yesterday morning, I'm now going, you know, for about hour 15, there was 30 fish caught.
Oh, wow. Okay, yeah. So there's still...
And that was scattered out. You gotta remember, that's a huge area. You know, there were probably 60 boats in that whole area, but
right.
Spread out everywhere. But and I use my binoculars. You know,
sure.
I mean, every time I see a boat sideways, I check it out.
Right, of course you do. I mean, that's he's been doing this long enough to understand that you got to learn what everybody else is kind of doing, where things are. All right, well, let's talk about what you're doing right now. Obviously, you like to fish spinners. You have your own spinner line from Yakima Bait that all of us have used to catch fish over the years, let alone from the old school red and white number 5s. All the way down to the 3.5s that you're doing now. Some of those willows are beautiful. But what have you been doing? How have you been getting your bites here recently? Say yesterday and the day before, or this week when you were getting those bigger fish?
I'm using a pull troll,
okay.
flasher. I run usually about a 30-inch leader off that to a soft spinner. I figure if you could have 5 spinner blades to use down there, and I'm using my 3.5 mini Mulkey, a Mexican hat, copper, copper red with a white dot, okay, rotten banana would be, you know, that's always a good one, especially early in the morning. All white with a pink dot is a very good one down there too, early in the morning. And then good old Bronco.
Okay.
You have to have a Bronco out every day.
Okay.
Okay.
It's one that's getting good for you.
And we've been getting them on a hoochie and not a hoochie. And I'm not sure about that as far as why. But you got to have one out with a hoochie.
And, you know, eyeball's eyeball, right? A little bit of contrast, something a little bit different. They get into your spread, you usually have 4, 5, 6 rods going.
Right.
So they can come up and take their pick and kind of look at different things.
And I believe you need a rod out the back. I think those fish end into your spread, just like you just said. And that rod out the back gets bit quite often because they'll leave there. They might. You got to remember, this is a social event for them. They see a school of salmon, and they're biting what's behind the salmon.
Right.
Because that's what your flasher is representing.
Sure. Sure.
And so, well, I don't see anything here, and they leave, and then they jump into what's behind them.
Right.
So.
A tip that's been shared by you in the past, and Mr. Ramsey, same thing. Mr. Tolman used to use that same theory. You know, keep something out there far enough where it's a little bit different from your main spread if you got a bunch of rods that are out there. I got to ask you about spinning fish. All right,
Sure.
Stuff for baits in general. You said that you're getting all your bites right now on spinners. Have you been using spinning fish, or did you get away from them? How has that bite been for you as opposed to spinners?
So the spinning fish is sort of a quirky deal there as far as getting them to bite it sometimes. And most time we use a 30-inch leader on them. And but you need to stretch that sometimes to 36, maybe even 40, even 48.
Wow.
You know, and come back. The other part of that is again, early morning raw banana, you know, and those was good. One of my best ones this year was the Bronco.
Okay.
You know, it's sort of a copy off the Bronco spinner.
Yeah.
And that was a very good one. Old double trouble.
Sure.
You know, just like in quick fish and you know, the rest of these.
Sure. Sure.
I mean, it's always been a good one.
Yeah, it's hard to argue with chartreuse.
You know, mag lips, Willamette, Columbia,
Yeah.
anywhere.
Right.
You know, that mag lip really works good with that.
How long are you going to continue to chase these things at the head of the channel before you take a break?
You know, I ran my last trip yesterday as guiding down there, but I'll probably go back and forth into July.
All right.
And check it out.
And you mentioned it already. It definitely extends into July right now. I mean, the last couple of years, folks have had some really good days on 4th of July, just because it's obviously the perfect date to reference. But it does go on a little longer. So folks that are paying attention to it, and that's where they want to spend their time because it's close to home, they still got a couple of weeks to take advantage of it. Right.
Absolutely. And the crowds loosen up a little bit. You know, I mean, I mean, everybody's families going places, and kids are out of school, and so it loosens up down there a little bit as far as traffic.
And it's just one of those fisheries that would you say that that there's any rhyme or reason to it, or is it simply fish by the barges or just cover ground? What would you suggest?
The reason you fish by the barges, that's a turn in the river, and the fish take the narrow spot to turn.
Gotcha.
Okay. The other part is the entrance coming out of the slough right there. There's fish coming out of there almost every morning. So they go out there and mill around. You catch them in the middle, back and forth. You catch them above. You catch them all the way to St. John's Bridge.
Sure.
You know, first thing in the morning, and a lot of mornings we start trolling right there at St. John's Bridge down.
Interesting.
You know, and those fish are laying in there.
Number one tip that you might give somebody that's going to fish that area?
Talk to anybody you can talk to as far as depth.
Okay.
Depth is a very important part down there. This week, in fact, the last 10 days, we've been getting them pretty shallow.
Really? How shallow? Like on your line counter, what do you hit?
12 feet.
12 feet on your line counter?
Yeah, almost every morning.
So that's like 8 or 9 feet below the surface?
It's 8 or 9 feet.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Now, along with that, of course, there's a number of different things that will determine where your gear actually is. Number one thing is going to be what kind of lead you're running.
And that's true. I'm running 16s up there.
Okay, 16s.
I run 16s on that shallow stuff and on 1 or 2 rods in the front like that. And
Gotcha.
And then 14s in the middle and then 12s off the back.
As the sun gets up higher, do you start dropping that down, or do you keep one at 12?
It's a temperature deal there a little bit, as well as sun. And the clarity down there hasn't been very good.
Interesting.
It's only been about 3 feet.
Okay.
So even mid-morning, we're still getting them at 16 feet, 18 feet. So I haven't caught many fish under 22 feet this year, and that's on a back rod with 12 ounces.
Gotcha. Pay attention, everyone. It's still a fishery that's very viable going forward, but there's a lot of things changing, right? In a month, you're going to be talking about buoy 10 and other options that are going to be up and down the coast as well. But when we come back, we're going to have our Chevy Silverado Tech Tip of the Week. I want to pick up where Terry mentioned his soft spinner, how he actually likes to run that, because that's all you do. You don't run a wired spinner.
I don't.
We'll be back with that in just a minute.
Outdoor GPS is brought to you by Yakima Bait, steeped in tradition, innovation, and fishing success. And by Procure Bait Sense, ruthlessly effective.